if you don't want to let it be, if you can't set yourself free, take your mind into another place and time. Free yourself up to find the universal mind. The universal mind. The universal mind.
Live from Hollywood, it's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Art Summers, and now, here's your host, Dan Harary.
Dan Harary, that's me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. This is our brand new time slot. We just got it as of this show right now, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific, which is whatever the hell it is, 9 to 10 Eastern. I always forget. So it's a little bit earlier, and this now I get to eat dinner after my show instead of before my show. So that's a whole new experience. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your emails and your notes to me. I really appreciate it. The Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is coming along nicely. We have more and more members joining us almost every couple of days now. We're gonna hit 200 members probably by the fall. And we're going to have an event September 22nd with Thomas Jane, the movie star, and with Ron James, the award-winning documentary filmmaker. The two guys are going to speak in L.A. September 22nd. If you're in L.A., then let me know. My books, my new books, My Paranormal Life over here, my ghost stories, and 5, my dark murder mystery thriller about a serial killer who gets reincarnated over and over again. Those just came out. Check out my books and, of course, my baby after they came. Working on the screenplay for that now. I'm almost done with my screenplay. And my mother goes, Danny, when's the movie? And I said, Mom, as soon as my hair grows back on my head, I will invite you to the movie premiere. Okay, that's it. And that's all. We have a fun guest tonight. He's a good friend of mine, and I will read his bio as we speak. Known as the agent to the UFO Stars, Shawn West represents dozens of world-renowned UFO experiencers, investigators, and book authors, including Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky. I met Travis at Contact in the Desert, spent some time with him. Lovely, lovely man. Nick Pope, who I've befriended as well from Ancient Aliens. Richard Dolan, UFO Chronicles. Jason Martell, The Proof is Out There. Lynne Kitei, the Phoenix Lights Network, who I interviewed a few months ago. Dr. Michio Kaku. Steve Bassett, my partner and friend from Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and he's the head of Paradigm Research Group, if you know Stephen. And a number of other people that Shawn West represents in this field, many of the top people in this field as an agent. These talented individuals are heavily sought after for film and TV shows, UFO conventions and conferences, as well as other types of corporate, personal appearances, and product endorsements. So if you're in this field and you need an agent, Shawn West is your guy for that. In the fields of TV development and production, Shawn also represents UFO film and documentary creators, including J3 Films and Sarah Davies, as well as dozens of shows distributed by Uncorked Entertainment, and many of these productions are seen on network cable and streaming TV, including NBC, the History Channel, Netflix, Science Channel, Travel Channel, Amazon, etc. Now, Shawn, I've known Shawn for 1 year, and he has perhaps the best UFO sighting stories that I've ever heard. Shawn is a UFO experiencer himself. He encountered a UFO in Spokane, Washington in 2005, and he saw another UFO in Washington State in 2007. We are going to talk about those at length in tonight's show. And tonight's show is commercial free, so we get an extra 5 minutes. On a daily basis, Shawn West actively seeks out people who have experienced strange phenomenon and makes efforts to help them tell their stories to media outlets, news programs, and prominent global publications. So Shawn West is the man and my friend, and he's on the board of directors of Hollywood Disclosure Alliance as well. So, Race, let's welcome my brother, Shawn West, into the room here. Or not. Or not. There he is. Shawn West, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dan?
I'm good. Who's that flag behind you? I have my late dad's flag. Is that someone in your family?
Yes, that would be the flag of my older brother. He was airborne infantryman. And also, I have another flag that for my father, who was in World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam. He was what they call a lifer.
Wow.
He was a drill sergeant, master sergeant in this man's U.S. Army. Served for about 30 years. My brothers and sisters were born in bases all around the world, including Munich, Germany, and I myself was born near Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
That's great. It sounds like your dad was a war trifecta, right? He hit all three big ones in a row.
Yeah, wow. The flat-brimmed, tiny, thin mustache SOB.
Do you remember the TV show, Shawn? Remember Gomer Pyle, the TV?
Oh, loved it. Yeah.
Remember Sergeant Carter? Remember him screaming and yelling?
Yeah.
Was your father like Sergeant Carter?
Yeah, he was about 135 pounds soaking wet.
Wow.
But he had a lot of energy and a loud voice. And I'm 6'1" and heavier than that.
Well, yeah, you must have towered over your dad, right?
Eventually, yeah. It took till about senior year in high school, but I did it.
That's so funny. That's great. So we've known each other for about a year. Before we go into our shared passion for ufology, just tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, and growing up, and your family and your siblings. Just big picture. What did you do when you were younger?
Well, I was the youngest of 5 kids, so I was always the baby of the family. And my father was in the military. He was stationed at Pearl Harbor. I was actually born in a car on the way to Pearl Harbor Hospital, same hospital that Barack Obama was born in.
Wow.
And we lived in a little town where the Dole pineapple factory came from. It's called Wahiawa, Hawaii, on the island of Oahu. And one late Saturday night, the time came for me to be born, and they jumped into an Opel, 1957 Opel, I think it was, and raced down Nimitz Highway. Didn't quite make it, only got about halfway there. My mom said, pull over, I'm having this baby. The only place with lights on was a tavern on the side of the road. And my father runs in there and says, my wife's having a baby. And the woman behind the bar said, he's drunk, get out of here. My dad went back to the car and said, honey, they don't believe me. She said, you better get back in there and get some help because I'm having this baby. So he runs back in there and he says, really, my wife's having a baby. And out from the back came a midwife, jumped over the bar, ran outside, and brought me into the world. And for about a year, my parents argued about what to call me, because my father wanted to name me after the tavern and my mother wanted to name me Terry. But Shawn's Tavern won out, and here I am today.
Well, what were the odds that a midwife would be there, right? Think about that. I mean, that's
true.
That's amazing. That's the best part of the whole story. There was a midwife there. That's insane. Wow. Wait.
And it was in the newspaper. They did a whole write-up in the newspaper, so I was fairly famous from day one.
That's great. Now I know that you and I have something else besides ufology in common. You and I both had very long hair, and we were in rock bands. I was a drummer from the age of 10, and you were a guitar player, and then you were in a rock band. Tell us about your rock.
No, I didn't pick up the guitar until about 10 years ago. I was a rock singer.
That's right. I'm sorry.
And keyboard player. I had several keytars. If you remember those from the 80s, you strapped them around and you.
Yeah, like Edgar Winter had one of those, I think.
Yeah. And we played, I was in a Hollywood glam rock band throughout the 80s and early 90s. And we played all the clubs up and down the strip and had long hair and leather pants and a lot of spandex back then.
What era? What era are we talking about?
Well, my band started in 84 and ran until 92.
Wow. So my little brother, who just turned 60 the other day, literally yesterday, my little brother turned 60. In 84, he was in a heavy metal band. I forget the name. And they used to play at the Whiskey and Gazzari's. And it probably was the same era, 84. It's probably the same era when you guys were playing too.
Now, my signal cut out there, Dan. I missed about 20 seconds of what you might have been saying.
20 seconds of my brilliance. My little brother turned 60 yesterday. In 84, he was the lead guitarist for a Van Halen type band. He was gifted. And they used to play at the Whiskey and Gazzari's on the Strip in 1984. So I'm wondering if my brothers
probably ran into each other. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were peers. You were peers with each other. That's great. Do you miss that era? Do you miss being a rocker?
Every day.
You had great hair, man. I saw the picture.
I did. And if folks are interested, they could just go to YouTube and put in Shawn West. And the name of my band at that time was called Mae West, MAE West. And they'll see some videos that are quite shameful.
I saw some of those. They're fantastic. Did you ever meet the real Mae West? She would have been alive.
Never did. I was always a big fan. W.C. Fields of Mae West. The golden age of Hollywood.
That's so cool. Oh, hi, Bridget Barclay. How are you? You guys make us loving this. Very sweet. And my daughter's in there too. You remember my daughter, Shawn. You tried to fix her up with one of your sons, but you said your son was a putz, so you didn't, and I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so I know this, sort of remember the story, but tell my 7 people that are watching the show right now how you and your wife had a conversation about how you were going to enter into the world of ufology as you were a Hollywood talent agent for quite a while. How did you become a Hollywood talent agent, and then how did you morph over onto the dark side of ufology?
It's only an hour show, Dan.
Give me the highlights.
The highlights. Well, I always wanted to be in show business. I was raised in the Cascade Mountains up in the Pacific Northwest in a tiny little town where we grew a lot of apples. And I always had dreams of being an actor or being a singer or performing. So from a very young age, I was always involved in anything that had to do with the stage, theater, and longed for the bright lights of Hollywood. And then during college, I was at the School of Music at the University of Washington. And there were a series of events. I found myself with bleached blonde hair and earring. And I rode my motorcycle to Hollywood in the mid-'80s and never looked back. And from there, I performed as a rock singer for several years, made some recordings, had a couple of hits on pirate radio. I don't know if you remember K-Rock and pirate radio.
Yeah,
a national syndicated radio show had a top 10 hit in the summer of 1991 called Young Love. So if you ever want to go in the Wayback Machine and bang your head, that would be a good song to do.
Did you make more than $1.50 from Young Love? Did you make any kind of money?
Believe it or not, I still get annual residuals, royalties from ASCAP as the composer and performer of that song. And what's funny is they always give you a sheet and it lists all of the countries where your song is playing. Right. And apparently I am huge in the Philippines. I have no idea why.
As well you should be. Have you ever been there in your life?
Never been there in my life.
You should go. You'd be like Elvis. Girls will pull off your clothes and your wife will yell at you.
The girls might be disappointed if they actually pull off my clothes at this point. But
I got you. Okay, so how did you become a talent agent?
Well, I was on the road singing, and my girlfriend at the time, we had a little place on Sunset Beach, just south of Los Angeles. Beautiful place to live and hang out. It's very serene. And I was in San Antonio, Texas, at a club, and I got a phone call, and she said, "Hey, I need you to come home." I said, I'm right in the middle of a tour. I can't come home. And she said, let me put it this way. If you don't come home now, by the time you do come home, you will not have a home to come home to. So I had to make some decisions and decided, well, you know, I'm pushing 30 years old. Maybe I should rethink my life. And I went back and tried to get what they call a real job. And
I've heard of those. I've heard of that.
Polished my resume, and I thought, what in the world industry could I possibly make a living at? And I thought, well, hey, I've been in music all my life. Why don't I work for a record label? So I dialed up Geffen Records, and they had a fax machine, and I faxed my resume to Geffen Records, and I got a phone call in 5 minutes.
Wow.
And I thought, this is it. I'm on my way.
Right.
And I said, is this Geffen Records? And the voice on the other end of the phone said, no, this is Joanne Geffen. Said,
she's a publicist. Is she a publicist?
And I said, well, I'm so sorry. I was dialing I was sending a fax of my resume to Geffen Records. I'm really sorry to bother you, but thank you for letting me know. Bye. She said, wait. She said, I'm a movie producer, and I have a best friend who's also a movie producer, and she's looking for somebody who, according to your resume, looks like you'd be a fit. Can I give her your resume? And I said, sure, why not? 15 minutes after that, I got a call from Ruth Landers, and she said, hey, I've got 2 pictures at Raleigh Studios that were in post-production, and I need a post-production supervisor. Can you go and handle this job for me? Because my guy just left. Now, it's one of those moments in life where you say to yourself, I could either tell the truth and let Ruth Landers know that I have absolutely no idea what a post-production film supervisor does, or I could lie my ass off and say, absolutely, I could do that job.
Of course.
So I decided to fake it till I make it and said, of course I can do that. She said, great, be at Raleigh at 9 a.m. So I walk into Raleigh Studios, and they say, I dressed up. I got rid of the spandex, put on a nice shirt, pleated pants, topsider shoes. And I walked into Raleigh Studios, and they said, Mr. West, we're glad you're here. Thank you. Please come this way. And I just followed the nice young lady, and she took me into a control room, and there's a 12-foot long control board, 2 middle-aged men with ponytails sent behind it, and a big, dark, cavernous soundstage with a screen at the end. And they said, Mr. West, can we get you anything? Would you like some coffee? A croissant, perhaps? We have fresh fruit that was just brought in. We'd be happy to get you anything you want. And I thought to myself, you know what? I haven't had breakfast. I better eat something. If I'm going to be doing this job that I have no idea what I'm doing, I better do it. So they piled me up, and I got coffee, and I'm just eating. And finally, I've wasted at least 30 minutes at this point. And they said, think we can get going soon? I said, sure. And I thought, well, this is it. I'm going to get my little briefcase that was empty. I actually brought a briefcase that was empty. I put some fake papers in it to give it some weight.
That's great.
And they said into a little microphone, okay, let's roll reel 1. All of a sudden, the thing starts running around. The lights come on in the screen, and they're watching a scene from some movie I'd never seen before. And I'm going, what is going on? Well, this lasted about 4 or 5 minutes. Finally, that reel ended. And they both turned to me and said, so what do you think? I'm sweating bullets because I still haven't figured out what my job is. Right. I have no idea. So I thought to say the only thing that popped into my mind. I said, can I see that again? And he said, absolutely. Let's roll wheel run, please. Take over. There it goes. And then I decided I better pay attention. So I looked over these guys' shoulders, and I see they got their fingers on the potentiometers on this board, and they're moving them up and down. And I'm going, what are they doing? And then I look at this little piece of tape. And on the tape, each channel says, one says Audrey, Judy, Bert Young. He was in the movie.
Yeah, okay.
Birds. One said birds. I'm like, what is it birds for? Then one says ART. And later on, I found out that stands for ambient room tone, of all things. And then after a couple of minutes of that, it dawned on me. They're mixing the sound from this picture. They're trying to get the sound right. I thought, wow, that's cool. I've never seen anybody do that before. 4 minutes later, they get done with that. They both turn to me and say, okay, what do you think now? With a very impatient tone to their voice. And I thought for a minute, paused, and I said, you know, I think there's too much birds.
That's what you said?
And the one guy looks at the other and he smacks him in the shoulder and says, see, I told you so.
Well, that's one of the great Hollywood stories of all time. Clearly.
We spent the next week and a half remixing the sound from reel after reel after reel of this movie, which was called Club Fed, and then another movie that Ruth produced called California Casanova. And I got a phone call a couple of weeks later, and Ruth said, everybody loved you. You did a fantastic job. We came in under budget and on time. And how would you like to join me in my management team and help me manage actors and actresses and models?
Oh, that's how it started. Okay. What was the name of what was the name of that management company?
Ruth Landers Management.
And how we only have 40 minutes and there's a lot of UFO stuff, so I want to move forward a little bit. How long were you there, and then when did you go over to the Wayne Agency?
Well, before the Wayne Agency, I was at the world's largest talent agency called William Morris.
Okay.
And so I spent 3 years with Ruth managing acts and making movies. And then one day I just decided that I needed to, if I was going to, take this seriously and be in business, instead of being a rock singer or acting in a musical somewhere, that I better get some training. So I figured I'll go to the world's largest talent agency, knock on their door and see what I can do. And so during lunch one day, I walked in right up to reception and I said, hi, I'm Shawn West and I'm here to give you my resume. Now, standing behind the desk was a 6.5 foot tall security guard who looked at me like, you got about 30 seconds to get back on Rodeo Drive because this ain't happening. We don't have pop-ins at William Morris. But luckily enough, there was a temp filling in during the lunch break for the regular receptionist. And she very nervously said, you're here for what? And I said, a job. Here's my resume. She said, human resources is across the street. Yeah, you better go over there. Okay, thank you. So I ran across the street with my resume, walked in. They're having lunch. Receptionist said, do you have an appointment? I said, no, but they sent me over here from across the street. And I handed her my resume. And she said, they sent you over here from across the street? I said, yeah. You have an appointment? No. She said, wow. And it was like she didn't know what to do with that information because here I was, some random guy with a resume, and I came from across the street.
Right.
Across the street is the executive building of all the board of directors of William Morris.
I got it.
So, and she was getting flustered. I could see down the hall behind her, and the office at the very end of the hall, the door opens up, and a woman who was the worldwide head of human resources sticks her head out and goes, just send him down the hall.
So she hires you?
And she says, she's looking at my resume. She goes, what are you doing here? Over here? And I said, they across the street sent me here. So what I found out later in my naivete is that I was basically saying, take me seriously because I'm coming from the executive office who just told me to come over here, which was, again, a complete circumstantial fabrication.
It was an incredible stretch, yeah.
So she looks at my resume, talks to me for about 20 minutes, and she says, how would you like to work in TV casting? I said, sounds great. She goes, okay, I'll call you. You can come in Monday or Tuesday morning about 9 o'clock. So over the weekend, I get a voicemail on my voice box, and it's human resources, same gal. She says, just want to let you know, I really enjoyed meeting you, and we would like to have you with us tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. She says, but I just want to tell you one thing. William Morris doesn't hire ponytails.
Okay.
Now, at the time, I still had my long hair, and I had a 1.5 foot long ponytail. And so she says, the choice is up to you. I can't tell you to cut your hair, but William Morris doesn't hire ponytails. And this is 1993, when ponytails were quite the rage. So I had a decision to make. Do I cut my hair that I had been painstakingly growing out for 15 years, or do I clean myself up and work for the man? Well, I decided to just be myself, walk in there with a long ponytail and a suit. And I started in TV casting, ended up in motion pictures. Not too long after that, ended up working with Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, Walter Matthau, and Sophia Loren, and spent a glorious 5 years in the executive suite working for the worldwide head of motion pictures. And I never cut my hair, and not one person ever asked me to.
Wow. That's a fantastic story.
And that's really how I learned, how to be an agent and do what I do now.
That's a really wonderful story. All right, let's move ahead a little bit. How did you morph into the Nick Popes and the Richard Dolans and the ufology stuff? And
well, it goes back to it starts with the sightings. I was, just like anybody else, I always looked up at the sky as a kid and wondered what in the world's going on up there. I never had any strange, phenomena or anything strange happen to me or anybody that I knew. And then one bright, crystal clear blue sky in September 25th of 2005, I was high up on a mountain, and I just happened to spot what can only be described as a very, very large craft stuck in the middle of the sky, shaped like a triangle. And the interesting thing about it, besides how big it was and where it was located, was it was hovering over Fairchild Air Force Base up in Washington State.
Okay.
And at the time, I thought, surely somebody from the Air Force Base has got eyes on this thing. And it was 7:55 in the morning. And so it was a Sunday morning. There was no traffic on top of this mountain. It's kind of like the Mulholland Drive, so to speak, of Spokane, Washington. So I just stopped my car right there at the intersection. I just sat there and watched this thing. And I leaned back in my chair and I put the craft right at the edge of my rearview mirror just to see if it would move. If I was stationary and I was looking at it, was it moving? It didn't move a lick. Kind of got nervous at that point because so many minutes had gone by, and I thought, must be something on the news about this. We're about to hit the 8 a.m. news break. So I reached down to turn on the AM news station just to see if anything was coming up on it.
Right.
And as soon as I looked back, it was gone, just like that. But I sat there and watched this thing. Had to be 100 feet wide. It was shaped like a triangle. It was shaped like a, you know what a Fram air filter is in your car?
Yeah.
Well, those are round. Imagine if a Fram air filter was triangular.
Like it was
and
thick.
Then imagine if you
it had like those thick sides.
Yeah, it had the thick sides and the little vertical lines an air filter would. It was about the same color. It was beige. It was beige color.
Beige color. Okay.
And the whole center was cut out of it. And the way it was angled, I could literally see the blue sky around it and through the middle of it. And it was huge. The line of sight up on that mountain had to be 50 miles all in a radius all around. So I had lots of space to see. And it was there for 5 minutes. I watched it just stuck in the sky, averted my gaze for a moment, turned back, and it was gone, just like that.
Right, that's your 05. Did you have did your cell phone have a camera at that time?
I did not have my camera with me at that time.
Okay.
I'd left it at home.
All right, that's your 05 sighting. Now we have some pictures of your 07, some artist renderings. But before we get to that, can we talk about you representing the greatest ufologist on the planet Earth? Because we have some fun photos. Hold on. Race, let's because we have some fun photos. Race, let's pull up slide number 1, please. And we can talk about this. Okay, so yeah, you don't look too happy there, Shawn, right? I mean, what a great picture.
Well, we always have a good time when we're on tour with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah, so talk about a little bit about the Ancient Aliens Live.
Well, it's a concept that Nick Pope and I had always talked about behind the scenes for a long time. We always thought, wouldn't it be fun if? And then lo and behold, really nothing to do with us, but the powers that be called up and said, we're thinking about taking a show, a very tried and true popular show on television, and taking it on the road. What do you guys think? And we're like, oh my gosh, finally, they're thinking the way we're thinking. So we very quickly put it together. Did some test shows, did 2 weekends back to back in the East Coast, and they were totally sold out. And we knew we were onto something. So now here we are, 3 years later, doing 40, 50 shows a year. And we've already started booking solid the first half of 2025. And, the show has the regulars, has Giorgio and Mr. Henry and David Childress and the ever lovable
Nick,
always grumpy Nick Pope. And then Travis, Travis from Skinwalker Ranch, he pops in and out now and then. And he's a lot of fun. And then there's my lovely wife is in the center.
I was going to ask you, who is the beautiful woman? That's your wife?
The broad is my wife, yes.
That's great.
And she's the one that actually got me into this nonsense. Do you want to hear that story?
Let's do that in 1 second. Race number 2, slide number 2. Who is this lovely lady in the middle?
That is my older sister, Pam.
Nice.
And I was involved in ufology for many, many years. Unbeknownst, I never really told anybody about it. I didn't go home and brag to my family about it. I kind of kept it a secret. And one day she found out I was at a UFO conference, and she lost her mind. She said, little brother, do you have any idea how into science fiction and ufology I am? And she started naming off every book, every researcher. It was encyclopedic knowledge of this field.
And you didn't know that? You didn't know your sister? You didn't know that about your sister?
No idea.
Wow.
And that was a few years ago. So now we go to conferences and together, and we have great conversations. She actually reads books ahead of me, let me know if something's cool or not, or accurate. And so Pam has been a great resource. In fact, when we were doing a live radio broadcast backstage at a UFO conference one year, and George Knapp, I was about to interview George Knapp, and I had never met George Knapp. And back then, I didn't really know who George Knapp was.
Okay.
And my sister hits me in the elbow and says, don't you know who that is? I said, no, I'm about to interview him. She says, well, you better talk about this and this and this and this and this. And I said, Pam, here you go. Here's the headphones. Here's the microphone. She's like, are you serious? I said, the show is yours. So she spent 45 minutes talking to George Knapp.
Wow, that's a wonderful
and grilling him, man. Grilling him, getting some great juicy stuff out of him. It was awesome.
Wonderful. I always wished I had a sister, but she looks really lovely, and that's a great story. Wonderful story. Race slide number 3. This is you at the Refuge, whatever that is. What is the Refuge? Forgive me.
It's a movie that one of my clients produced many years ago. We were at this was the opening at the Egyptian Theater, and we had a party. I actually threw a party at Musso and Frank's about an hour and a half before showtime. And so we had had a party, about 12, 14 people across the street. We were having a great time. And then we all marched our way into the theater, and I got a picture snapped of me just for posterity's sake. And I was a lot of fun.
That's great. What year was this?
Oh, goodness. I can't remember what year. It's probably a year when I weighed about 15 pounds less than I do now. So
I'm just wondering if I may have been at Musso and Frank's. I've been hanging there.
Well, I probably would have recognized you if you were there that day.
I've been there since 2019, quite a bit as their rep. Okay, number 4. Race, please, slide 4. Okay, there is the one and only. You guys are yeah. Would you say you're friends? Like, would you consider him a friend?
Well, if anybody knows or meets Giorgio, they're instant friends. He is that nice of a guy. In fact, I would give the shirt off my back to Giorgio, which he asked me to do when we were at this hotel. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and we walk in, and I didn't plan this, but I just happened to be wearing a really cool safari shirt. And he walks up and he grabs my lapels and he goes, "Give me that shirt! Give me that shirt!"
Wow. That's wonderful. Yeah, I've met him many, many times. The first time I met him, Shawn, was in '07. My very first MUFON, Southern California MUFON meeting, my very first one. 2 years before Ancient Aliens, he was not famous. He spoke for 90 minutes about ancient astronaut theory, and I was hooked. I was enthralled. I cried. I hugged him at the end, and I literally said, "Giorgio, you just changed my entire view of the world." To which he said,
Wow.
"Cool, man, but don't tell anyone it's all smoke and mirrors." So I thought that was pretty funny. But
He's very self-deprecating in real life. He really is.
He's a lovely,
You know,
lovely guy. I've met him quite a few times.
He takes his research very seriously, but he doesn't take himself very seriously.
Great personality. He's a wonderful person. Race number 5, please. Okay, so this is at the launch of our Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Steve Bassett and I created. You are one of our founding members, and you're on the board. Tell us who we're looking at over here.
Well, hey, on the left, we're looking at Craig Campobasso, and he is a casting director in Hollywood. I've worked with him for years and years and years on all kinds of motion pictures and TV series. And it's another one of those things. Had no idea he was into ufology. Not only that, but he's written a book on ufology. And he's written a book about all of the different kinds of aliens, the reptilians and the Pleiadians. And it's kind of the encyclopedia of who's who in the universe.
I need to read that.
Let's see.
I need to read
then
that.
we have Ron James and Thomas Jane and Mr. Hynek.
Called the Alien Almanac.
What is it, Ray?
It's called the Alien Almanac.
Alien Almanac. I need to read. Yeah, I need to read that one. Yeah, Ron James.
It's now a documentary film as well, which will be out soon.
That's right. I am working with Ron James as his publicist. He has Accidental Truth Next coming out in September. It's the sequel to Accidental Truth UFO Revelations from last year. Very good, nice guy. He's the head of MUFON Media Relations. He's in the back in the middle. And then our dear friend Thomas Jane, who is Shawn, have you ever seen Thomas Jane wear shoes and socks? Because you know he does not wear shoes and socks.
No, and when I saw Thomas in the parking lot at Musso and Frank's, he said hello, and I said, "Hey man, you don't remember this, but over 20 years ago, I put you in a movie called 61 Asterisk, playing Mickey Mantle when I was at HBO Films." And we had a nice talk about the good old days when Billy Crystal produced that movie, and that was a lot of fun.
That's one of my favorite movies. When I met Thomas this same day that we're looking at here, and I told him, and he goes, "That's very sweet." He and I have become friends. So he's a really wonderful guy. I really like him a lot. And then on the right, Paul Hynek, son of the one and only Dr. J. Allen Hynek, right? And Paul is all things DMT, Bitcoin, and aliens, DMT, and Bitcoin. He's the only one of his kind that melded those three things together. And if you ever meet Paul, ask him about DMT, and he'll tell you all about that. But this is quite a bunch of characters there. That was a fun day, Shawn. Wasn't that a good day?
It was, well, not only the fun day, but we had a great get-together the night before.
Right.
And, you know, what you've put together with the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is just nothing short of a glorious minor miracle.
Go on. I'll take it.
It was long in coming. And when you approached me to hear about it, I mean, you didn't really even have to invite me to be a part of it. As soon as I heard the first 30 seconds of the pitch, I went, "I'm in. I've been waiting for this all my life, practically." The juxtaposition of ufology and art and the people that make and tell the stories, bringing them together just to lend legitimacy, accuracy, and building up the families is what it's all about. Because we have two factions. We have two essentially families, the folks that make the content and the folks that research and write the content.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So for those of you watching who might not know, my book, after they came out March 2023. I started going to UFO conferences. I've been a Hollywood publicist, Shawn, you know this, for 40 years. And I became an author 2 years ago. I have 5 books. But my UFO book came out last year. I went to UFO conferences. And along the way, I met Stephen Bassett, and he and I became friends in March 2023 in San Francisco. And then at the end of May 2023, he was in LA and he calls me up and he says, Dan, why don't we have lunch? So we had lunch at Michelli's Italian across the street from Musso and Frank.
Around the corner.
And we were there for 3 hours. So we were there 3 hours. And Stephen just is telling me his life story. And then I told him mine. And then he said, Dan, I'm a disclosure advocate, 30 years. You're a Hollywood publicist, 40 years. And Shawn, this is how HDA was born. Stephen looks at me, he goes, Dan, what can we do together? So here's how my brain works. I'm like, okay, Stephen disclosure, right? Me, Hollywood. I'm like, okay, Hollywood disclosure, Hollywood disclosure. Okay, so Hollywood disclosure. So I look up at the ceiling. It's a true story. I look up in the ceiling, I look back. I go, Stephen, we're going to create the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And he goes, that's it. That's it. Exactly. That's it. And he shook my hand. Okay. 4 days later was Contact in the Desert 2023. 4 days later. Stephen said, Dan, you got to come. I want you to introduce you around. I go, Stephen, I don't want to schlep out to Palm Springs. I want to relax this weekend and nap and read my books. No, Dan, you got to come. You got to come. You got to come. I'll put you up. You got to come. Okay. So 2023 Contact, I went for the weekend as Steve Bassett's shadow. Okay. Literally as his shadow. Now, when you're at that show with Stephen Bassett, it was like being with Moses, because like nobody on the planet Earth knew me last year. Now everyone does. And I'm not bragging. It's just true. But last year, not one person knew me there. So I'm behind Stephen Bassett. He's walking through and Steve Bassett autographs, pictures at Steve. I look at Steve Bassett and I'm behind him. I'm like, wow, this guy, I guess it's like, I'm like with Ringo, I'm like, I'm walking behind Ringo's star. So he introduced me to Nick Pope and Paul Hynek and Richard Dolan and Ron Janix, Ron James, Katie Page, Earl Grey Anderson, Whitley Stewart. Just the list was on and on. George Norrie. And what was cool, Shawn, is all that we had were 3 words. Me and Stephen had 3 words: Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. We did not have a logo. We did not have a website. We did not have a company. We did not have a mission statement. We had no idea what Hollywood was, what it was. No clue what it was. But we knew those words were magic. Every single person that Stephen and I spoke to, starting with George Norrie to Nick Pope to Dolan, right down the line, every single one, we said, we're going to create this group. And 201, oh, I want to be part of that. Oh, I want to be that. George Norrie grabbed my shoulder, said, Danny, I want to be your member number 1. I go, George, you are member number 1. George Norrie was the first member. I don't know if you knew that. So it was like wildfire. Everyone joined. So now it's last summer, last fall. I meet you. I meet Jeff Stein, right? I meet Paul Hynek. And we start to think, we're onto something here. So I call it chocolate and peanut butter. It's like you just said, Shawn. We have UFO researchers, experiencers, and disclosure advocates. That's peanut butter, I guess. And then chocolate are the Hollywood writers, producers, directors, performers. 2 disparate groups that historically have never chocolate peanut butter blended into a Hershey's Reese's peanut butter cup. And when I thought of it, it just kind of happened. It was beshert. There's a Yiddish word, beshert, something meant to be. My children were meant to be. My PR business was meant to be. Hollywood Disclosure Alliance apparently was beshert. It was meant to be, because as soon as we all collectively, and including you, put our heads together, we created something remarkable. Today, we're a year older. We're honing in on 200 members. We have Shirley MacLaine, Dee Wallace, Thomas Jane, Donia Ramirez, Dave Foley, Travis Walton, Whitley Strieber, Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, Steve Bassett, Paul Hynek, George Norrie. The list is just remarkable of who we have. And we're starting to do more and more live events. And as you know, Shawn, we have a Slack channel, which my daughter Anjali is over there. And she created the logo and the website, as you know. My daughter's gifted. I'm a moron, but my daughter's a genius. And our Slack channel, our members are talking to each other, including you, like, hey, I have a script. Ancient Aliens is casting. They need women who have been abducted and have had their fetuses taken, or I just wrote a book and it comes out. I'm going to do a book signing. People are very robust in that room, in the HDA room. And I'm very, very proud of it. I think it's really quite remarkable that in a year, so 3 words that I had with Stephen came to be, and it's a legitimate thing now. And thank you for your help along the way. You helped put us on the map. Well,
truth be told, it's besides being a great idea, and now being, filled with wonderful people from all around the world. Bill.
Both sides.
It's an international organization. As a nonprofit, we've been able to bring together, for legitimate business reasons, both sides of the coin. Now, Angelique created an incredible website that clearly outlines who's who on the Hollywood side, who's who in the UFO UAP side. And when I, as an agent, I get phone calls all the time, every day, from producers at all the networks, all the streaming providers, and they're producing content, whether it's a fictionalization, a movie or a documentary or a series, and they say, hey, who on your roster is available or interested in this topic? What experts do you have that know about, black ops, military, government, abduction? And so I'll do the usual agent song and dance, and I'll say, hey, I've got so-and-so and so-and-so, and this person's working on that and this other thing. So, but if you really want a one-stop shop, you go to the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance website, that Angeliqueville.
Right.
And they always, I get so many thank yous, and especially from the young producers. Now, these are folks that are assigned by Netflix to take on a topic that they've never dived into before.
Yeah.
And so they might be 25 years old, 30 years old. They have no idea who Dr. Michio Kaku is. They've never heard of Richard Dolan or Tracy Garvin. They just don't know. And they start getting into this, and they're lost. And by the time they get to me, they're like, please help me. And so I just point them to the HDA website, and they call me back or send me an email and say, you just made my job a lot easier.
Wow, that's great. That's really kind of the first time you've ever told me that. And I'm very flattered, and I'm really glad that that's happening, because I've befriended hundreds of people in the last 2 years. Many of the HDA members have become very, very good friends of mine, personal friends of mine. And they have remarkable stories. Here, my goal for the HDA is to have my friends and HDA members who have remarkable stories, like you have, like I have, and many, I could name quite a few other people. These people are not BS artists. These people are not crazy or wacko or nuts. These are friends of mine who I've gotten to know, who have had profoundly paranormal, remarkable stories. And Shawn, just think, if half of our HDA members had a movie about them or a TV episode or something, I think we would move this disclosure movement hopefully further, but we would just expand the horizon. There are so many puzzle pieces to ufology and aliens and interdimensionality and ghosts, even ghosts and poltergeists. I've had experiences with my dead father and my dead grandfather. So all of these things, the last few interviews I've done, people are saying, Dan, HDA, you have so many pieces of the puzzle. Several people have said this to me, Shawn, different pieces of the puzzle. And as a community, if we put all these pieces of the puzzle together and have a movie or a TV show or a documentary or a book, present it to the world, we're going to move these stories, into the next era. I'm very proud because in the last 80 years, most of Hollywood's movies, as you know, aliens come to kill us or eat us. I mean, that's my joke. They come to kill us or eat us. There's only 4 movies that we've identified, E.T., Close Encounters, The Abyss, and The Arrival, that they're kind and benevolent and gentle. But every other movie, War of the Worlds, Independence Day, they want to kill us and eat us. Twilight Zone, Episode to Serve Man. So more stories that get out that are based on real people with real experiences, new voices through people like you getting to Hollywood producers and Netflix. It's I think maybe in the next 10 years it'll be the world will look a lot different.
Oh, absolutely. And everyone's got incredible experiences, and I just hope that everyone that is involved in HDA and all the new folks that get involved in HDA, that they will keep really good records so that we can have an archive, a library that eventually could be like the motion picture library, where people can come and see videos and read scripts and read stories and create their own content from the experiences of all of us.
You know what? I got the chills when you said that. If we had a physical office, Shawn, and we could create a physical archive with books and DVDs and interviews. You know how Steven Spielberg did the Shoah Foundation? He has videotapes of Holocaust survivors and created an archive. Well, what a wonderful idea that is. I think that's
Well, I have been working on a little side project called the Hollywood UFO Museum, where it's a bit of that, where there's a bit of walk and talk, AI hosts, videos, and quiet rooms, place where you can go and get out the old microfiche and look up newspaper articles, things like that.
And you haven't told me about this?
I have not told you, Dan. I'm so sorry. I've been keeping that one a secret in my back pocket.
Shawn, if I don't work with you on that, I will be very sad and upset. We got to do that.
Well, Nick Pope and I have been working on that project on the side, as well as turning his novel into a motion picture called Blood Brothers.
Nice. Well, anything that's Hollywood related, you know me, Mr. Russo and Franks, and 40 years in Hollywood and all that. But I would love to talk about with you offline. Okay, we have a few minutes. Now I want to go to your 2007, which is the best UFO story ever of all time. Race, can we see slide number 6? Okay, so Shawn, this is an artist rendering you sent me this morning. Tell me what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I felt compelled, after this happened, I felt compelled to kind of memorialize it, on screen. And so I commissioned a very wonderful artist on the East Coast to create these images. Now, these are not just two-dimensional images, but these sit in a CAD system where it's three-dimensional. So we could actually fly around this if we wanted to. This is a rendition of where this very frightening incident took place. On the side of a road in Washington State near Mount Adams,
right,
on the Yakima Indian Reservation. I had gotten lost. I was on a business trip, and early on a Sunday morning seems to be my thing. I came across what can only be described as a cutout portal in the sky. And as I'm driving up upon it, I see it off in the distance, and it's undulating. Notice how it's black and white concentric squares.
Yes.
These things were moving. And at first I thought, since I was near the Yakima Indian Reservation, I thought there was an Indian gaming casino nearby.
Right.
And this was an advertisement.
Looks like a billboard, yeah.
Looks like a billboard. And I got closer and closer and realized there's no feet on this thing. There's no stand. There's no structure holding this thing up in the air. And so I pulled my car over, and I sat there and watched this thing. And as I got within just a few feet of it, the black concentric squares changed. And I saw a series of scenes right before my eyes, one after another after another.
Hold on. Shawn, I'm sorry. Race number 7. Okay, so is this part of the? This would be
the last thing I saw.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Go on.
But when I just saw the square cut out of the sky, the first thing I saw when I got within 20, 30 feet of it was a pink world, just like something out of a Star Wars movie. I see a city with floating buildings,
wow,
craft, traveling from one building to the other, odd shapes. Everything was pink sky, pink clouds, a pink hue. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking, I'm watching a movie. This is a movie screen. Is this a drive-in movie? No, it's not. And as soon as I wrapped my head around what I was seeing, the screen flashed. Suddenly I was in orbit around a planet. And again, the planet was pink. A few seconds later, the screen flashed again. I was in deep space. It was dark.
You mean, hold on. You were seeing that, or you were in?
I was sitting in my car, looking out my front window, watching this happen.
You were seeing deep space from your car.
Yes, inside that square.
Right. Okay.
Next thing I know, it's a clear as day shot of our moon. I'm somewhere hovering over our own moon. Next thing I see is a flash, and I'm in orbit around Earth. Easily recognizable planet Earth. And guess what's going through my head at that point? After several seconds of this, I'm thinking, whatever's causing this is getting closer to me.
Okay.
Because I was far away in space, I was near the moon, I was in deep space, I was near the moon, I was in orbit around Earth, and Lord only knows what's going to happen next. So I said to myself, I'm going to be prepared. I reached down, got my Nokia camera, and stuck my arm straight out towards the window, and I knew I didn't have much time.
Right.
So I had used that Nokia camera since my days at HBO. In fact, it was a Time Warner cell phone that they gave me for my work that I still had 5 years later. And I knew that if I smashed the middle button and I clicked the up arrow twice, it would take me to the camera. So without even looking at it, I went smash, click, click, and just as I did that, an object flies out of the center of that portal.
Okay, hold on. Race number 8. There you go.
And it scared the living hell out of me.
How big, Shawn? How big would you say that was? 6 feet? 5 feet?
In real life, this was about as big as a combination washer dryer.
Really? Wow. Okay. Wow.
And I smashed the middle button as this object was coming out of the center of the portal. My hand and arm hit the back headrest of the passenger side seat. The camera goes out of my hand, flying, and bing, 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 ricocheted all around the back seat of the car.
Sounds like Jerry Lewis. Yeah, go ahead.
And I went, damn. And I craned my neck to turn around and look, and I watched this thing shoot off into the distance.
Wow.
Until I couldn't see it any longer.
Now, these are artist renderings. Do you have the actual photo from that camera?
Well, that's one of the scary parts of the story. And I don't know if we have time for it, but I'll try to get to it. I'll try to summarize.
We have 3 minutes, Shawn. 3 minutes.
This story has 3 parts. I have only told parts 1 and 2 publicly one other time. This is my second time ever telling this story.
Right. Thank you.
And I've never told part 3 to anyone for fear, out of just sheer fear. And if you knew a little bit more information, you'd understand why. But suffice to say, I got out of my car and I went right up to this portal, and I said, I need to verify that there's nothing holding this up. And so I walked behind it. And when I walked behind it to see if there was some sort of structure behind there fooling me,
right,
there was nothing back there. And I stepped back around and I watched the portal disappear, suck right back into itself.
Right in front of your eyes?
Right in front of my eyes.
Wow.
Now, the reason why you see 2 portals is the moment, and this is captured on the Nokia camera phone. Right when that object shot out, a second portal flashed as if it was being stretched and pulled away from the larger portal. Now, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a military ops guy. I can't explain why that is, but in my imagination, it would probably have something to do with a time dimensional warp in space or warp in time, where what I'm looking at is stretching as an object is coming out of it. Right. I don't know anything about quantum theory or physics, but that's what I could imagine why there would be like an echo of the portal behind it, a little bit higher and a little bit behind it.
It's just fantastic. Have you spoken to Michio Kaku about your adventure?
Oh, hell no. He would fire me as his agent if I told him this story.
There you go. Listen, Shawn, I love you, man. We got 30 seconds.
How can I was nuts?
It's a fantastic story. How can people reach you? What are you on social media? social media?
I'm at the Wayne Agency. I'm the head of the theatrical and unscripted department at the Wayne Agency for the last 11 years. And if you just go to thewayneagency.com, there's my contact information there.
The Wayne, WAYNE, thewayneagency.com. Shawn West is there. Thank you for doing this for me. This was a lot of fun. We could have done another hour, I'm sure, easily.
Anytime. I'll tell you part 2 of the story.
Okay. All right. And I have a project to talk to you about offline. And everyone, thank you for watching. HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. We are accepting donations to become a supporting member. It's all there. Thank you, Anjali, my beautiful daughter who I'm madly in love with. And Dan Harary, author.com for my books. Shawn West, thank you very much. Next week is Deborah Cobble, who is the source of the book Intruders, Bud Hopkins Intruders. And she will be my guest next week, live from Hollywood Paranormal Tonight. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for accommodating our new earlier hour. Race Hobbs, my producer. I love you. You're my brother. See everybody next week. Thank you.